Welcome to Comic Station, issue number 6 for February 6, 2013. I am Paul Nisi.
And I'm Scott Cates of the Comic Station.
We'll be going over some new releases, including 2 for some holidays, one that's coming up and one that has since passed, as well as a review and a recommendation. Welcome. Welcome to the new releases for February 6, 2013. We're going to kick off with a number 0. This is Harbinger from Valiant Publishers. This series is, I think, in the 3rd or 4th issue, but the 0 is telling background story as usually they do after a few issues in. This one sets it up, if you're not familiar with the series, this sets it up beautifully. It introduces a clandestine organization. You get introduced to characters, one kid being used by this organization, by this person who as well has powers. You find out his background, how he learned that he had powers and how he has since used them, and the world around him and the situation that brought him into his mentality. That's probably the key to this whole issue. And also you learn that this organization manipulates governments. I'm sure it goes into it more into this Harbinger series. But I think as a number 0, I think they set it up beautifully. I thought very interesting idea and story behind it. And it's interesting. I think people should pick this up, read it. If they like this, go and get the other issues. But this sets it up, and it definitely introduces the characters and introduces their mentality into it. So it's a good number 0.
Valiant has been, since they've been back, Valiant was a company back in the 90s, kind of went out of business, back now. All of their titles so far, I believe they have currently 4 or 5 out, and they're all selling well. So, you know, it's another good sign that the industry's strong. There's another small company that's moving ahead.
The next one we have, I do have to say I personally saw this on Kickstarter and I backed it, and I purposely stayed away from reading too much forward to it because I wanted to get the comic edition, and I am glad I did. This is Fairy Quest Outlaws. Beautiful cover, beautiful artwork. That's the first thing. One of the obvious reasons I backed it was the artwork behind it, and I wanted to see what they could do with it. This is by Jenkins, Ramos, and Olia. It's a great little story. It's basically it's a fairy tale world in Fabletown. All the fairy tales are basically being policed and forced to stick to the script by Mr. Grimm and his police force. He's very strict. Nobody can go off script. Doesn't matter how unhappy you are. Cinderella, maybe she's not the perfect match for the prince, but he wrote the script and they have to stick to it. There's a bunch of griping and everything, but they can't do anything about it. It's a beautiful story between Little Red Riding Hood actually befriends the wolf, as you'll learn quickly in the first few pages, and I really liked it. I'm really glad I backed this as far as just for the artwork alone, but the story as well. It's really nice. It's only 2 issues, so I'm wondering what they're going to go with it further, honestly. The way they left it, it could just keep going, so I'm kind of concerned that there's only 2 issues.
It's hard to tell. Boom, though, once again, another up-and-coming company. Boom has a lot of titles out right now. Probably most famous for Adventure Time, but you know, I'm looking forward to reading it. I have not read anything by them yet that has disappointed me.
Yeah. I probably will write something up about it. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a review just because I did back it. So maybe I'll have to disclose that when I do if I do a review on it. The next one is back again. This is from Image Comics. This is Dia de los Muertos. It's the Day of the Dead, Mexican Day of the Dead. One thing you will notice, that this is a bigger comic than as usual. It won't fit in slipcases. It also, not just that, but it has a very nice, like, I don't want to say homemade, but very nice texture to it. It's different than a lot of comics. It gives it a more homemade feel to it. This actually is not just one issue. There's actually 3 stories within the comic, all centering around the Day of the Dead celebrations and the meaning behind it. The second story actually has a little bit of insight into the Day of the Dead and what it actually means to the culture. Just a quick little one if you're not familiar, but uh, basically it's more about ancestors and spirits that are not necessarily evil. It's not a Halloween. It's not dressing up like that. This is celebration of the dead. This is celebrating where you came from. And all 3 stories are self-contained. They all have a moral behind them that all obviously go with the theme. Uh, Again, the bright color palette and the interesting artwork all complement the theme well. Because they are 3 separate comics within this one, you can easily tell by flipping through it when one artist switches to the other. You can also tell that the Day of the Dead theme runs through it, even with the artwork. But each artist has their own color palette. They're all bright, but they're all different. Honestly, there will be a full review up on frontporchgamer.com, and basically it comes down to I love short stories. I've read a lot of Isaac Asimov's short stories, and there is one of the 3 that was not my favorite, but the other 2 were good. I think they benefit yet also have a problem because it is short stories. They have a much more condensed space. They can't explain some of the story behind it, and they can't go much longer. But I think that also makes them have to be creative and fit a story into their slot that they have. So, again, with short stories, sometimes the overall book is benefited more than the individual components. So I'm interested to see with further issues. If I believe this is 3 issues that they're doing, so I'm wondering if the total of the 9 stories will make up for any one individual. But you can see the full review on Front Porch Gamer, the score that I gave it as well. So.
No, I haven't had a chance to read it. I did look through it though with Paul. The artwork looks tremendous, so I'm actually looking forward to reading it.
Yeah, in my review, I do mention the artwork is probably the most standout of the book. So. And the last one, again, we went from one holiday to the next, and as it's February 6th, the next one would be Valentine's Day. And we have DC's Young Romance from the New 52. Happy Valentine's Day. It's a bunch of short stories. There are 6 short stories within this one, all of them having to do with different DC characters. You get Batman and Catwoman. Really, that's more of a story of Catwoman remembering her first meeting with Batman kind of fondly. And then you get Aquaman, Batgirl, Soul Brothers, Nightwing, and then it ends with the most famous partnership here is Superman and Wonder Woman. All the stories are not lovey-dovey. They're not all together at the end of the story. Obviously, with Catwoman and Batman, for example, they don't get together. It's just a fond remembrance on Valentine's Day. So it's not gonna just be like, oh, everyone gets together at the end. It's not one of those typical stories, but each one is different. Each one has their own, depending on the character, even especially depending on the characters within it. The artwork changes with those series, so it's really nice. It's interesting. If you're a big fan of the DC New 52, it's a nice little thing to have, maybe Valentine's Day gift. But honestly, it's a one-off. It's a one-shot. It's not really needed. Unfortunately, as much as I love Valentine's Day and I love stories, you can't. It's unless you're a big fan, you just have to have all the 252. It's not. You don't have to have it. there is some Valentine's cards inside if that's a real seller for you. There's like you had in middle school and such. There's Valentine's cards. You can rip them out and be my Valentine with all the different DC characters. It's cute. It's a little extra.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about it. I mean, it's once again, it's another thing by one of the big two to make a couple extra bucks. I think,
Yeah, in all honesty,
maybe you'd get your girlfriend to read a comic book in that respect.
Yeah.
Where if your wife doesn't like this particular genre, it might be a good way to get smacked if you give her a Valentine's Day card out of this book.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't fly too well. But like I said, if you're a big fan and you just have to have all the New 52, go for it. If not, get them some flowers and take them out to dinner or something. Just don't give them one of these cards.
Yeah, right.
Alright, if you were paying attention last week, we had some of the new releases, and I decided I wanted to review one of those releases. This was DC's Injustice Gods Among Us. If you're keeping up with frontwardsgamer.com, you obviously know that the video game is coming out from NetherRealms, so NetherRealms and DC teamed together to give a little more backstory. The game, NetherRealms made Mortal Kombat, especially their new reboot, came out really well. I've always loved the Mortal Kombat franchise because of their heavy characters. They got a little kitty, but the reboot really brought it back to the essence of Mortal Kombat. Heavy, gritty characters. And I think from everything I've seen on the videos and what I have been able to play with it so far, it really holds up to that. Very weighty, and the details on the characters are beautiful. So this translates well into the comic, because what better way to tell the backstory of DC comic characters going into a fighting game than in a comic, bringing it all back again. So it's starting off, once you open the page, it's evident that DC again has always done a fairly good job of bringing in the video game tie-ins, and this is no exception. They have brought in a good team for the artist and colors. It's beautiful, very detailed, really good story actually. You wouldn't think that for a fighting game, but if you like fighting games, I recommend this for the background story. I haven't been able to see what storyline is in the game itself, but I imagine that this is going to expound on that a lot more. Originally, this was a digital format online, and they took 3 of those digital issues and made it one comic issue. There's going to be about 3 or 4 individual issues here, and then the trade paper coming in the collector's edition for the game. As such, the game comes out April 16th. The last issue comes out April 24th. It's kind of evident at the end. I read it. It was beautiful. I love the story. It was really action-packed. You get a beautiful shot in the beginning of what the future is, and it goes 5 years prior and tells you how it all happened. Why are these characters fighting? But after I was done reading and I put it down, it dawned on me how quickly this pace was. And I kind of feel like I like my story I like to read the story, and this just felt a little too rushed. And I think that maybe the time frame for the game and all is pushing it a little faster. Maybe they should have started a little sooner before now. As such, it was beautiful. I loved it. While reading it, it was amazing. But after I was done, I just had this impression that it just went too fast. Which isn't to say that the story wasn't good. It was good. I wanted more of it. I mean, you quickly learn that Batman is in Metropolis tracking Joker. Joker is in there for some reason, and then next thing you know, it's near the end of the comic, and it ends just wow. And it just hits you. And I just wanted, it just went from, he's in the city, he's there, bang, 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 done. And I would have liked a little bit more, maybe more expounding on Joker and what he was doing and all. That being said, all the characters are well represented here. If you follow the game, you have Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern. There's some other characters that are being rumored. Lex Luthor will show up eventually, so forth. But they're all especially in the comic as well, they're all drawn gritty and dark and heavy, just like the game, and it fits them perfectly. Each character, like Joker's demented, Superman's emotional, especially in this storyline, and it resounds perfectly off of Batman's just cool demeanor as he always is, very calculated, and it perfectly meshes with Superman's starting to get a little hectic. But we find, basically, at the end of this comic, you learn what drives Superman, what made him snap. But you're wondering what, if you follow the game, you're wondering why all these other characters are fighting, and that's what I'm looking forward in the next few issues. So I want to know the mentality of what made all these characters go the route they did, and why are they all fighting. Even villains are fighting with heroes at a certain point. So, despite the pacing issues and some of the conversion from the digital format, changed the artwork a little, obviously a little more boxed artwork, easy for scrolling, but maybe not the best for comics. It would have been nice to see them start with comics first, but that's coming from a comic reviewer. So I thought it was a perfect tie into the game. On fronttowardgamer.com you can read the full review, a few snapshots inside as well. Try not to spoil anything. I gave it a 7 out of 10, which is good. I just would have liked to have had more story, and as beautiful as the artwork was, I wanted them to try a little something outside of the box, quite literally. So, that's my review.
Well, this is my recommendation. This week, with the new Marvel Now, we're going to go with Fearless Defenders #1. Just read it, and for me, I like characters that aren't the everyday norm. This centers on 2 characters, Valkyrie, who is relatively new, and Misty Knight, who has been around for quite a long time, from Luke Cage days, Heroes for Hire. The story centers around Misty being hired to protect something, and of course being attacked, which leads her in the long run to Valkyrie, and an old dig site for Vikings. So it ties them in together really nice. You understand why they come together. The artwork is typical of today's modern artwork. It's good. There's nothing really outstanding about it, but there's nothing to detract from it either. I like the story, and I like the characters. It's different from your average superheroes. So I would say, out of all the new comics, I definitely have enjoyed this one. So give it a shot.
All right. That was our Comic Station issue number 6 for February 6, 2013. If you have any comments you would like to share, feel free to leave them below in the video, and we will hopefully get back to you, or feel free to contact me on my Twitter of @Pinisi. Happy to answer any questions. If you have any recommendations for comics or any other related material that you would like brought up on the show, anything and everything, just feel free to mention it. We're always looking to expand and improve. So let us know what you think. And as always, you can check any of my reviews, any write-ups, and all the other previous Comic Stations on fronttowardsgamer.com, as well as our YouTube page and the Comic Stations YouTube page as well. Right, thank you, and see you next week.